guys, it's Carolyn from Homesteading Family, and I'm really excited about sharing this video with you guys today because I get emails from you guys all the time that tell me how many of you guys have come to the homesteading space by struggling with health issues. And so I'm really excited to have my good friend Jaime here because wow, you have struggled with some health issues and you have found a lot of help and a lot of healing through kind of taking control of your health, haven't you? Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to share her story with you guys so that you guys can have some encouragement, you can have some hope that the issues that you're dealing with do have answers out there. And I wanted to get some practical information from Jaime too as to how she went about healing her body and getting to a place of a lot greater health and energy. So hey, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now can you tell us a little bit, okay, so just to put it into context, at this point in your life, you have a farm with a raw milk dairy.
I do.
So you are definitely involved.
I'm working.
You're working.
I'm physically capable of doing a lot of work.
7 days a week. A lot of work every day. Cows are not forgiving, are they? You have got to be there. No, they are. And so you are really involved in the natural food movement.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I wouldn't be doing this if it hadn't been for my passion for food and what it does for our health and our kids and my family.
So let's go back and tell us a little bit about your struggles with health and how that started, what it looked like, and really what your problems were.
Sure. Okay, it was about 7 years ago that my health overnight really it just declined, and it took a lot of doctor's visits and a lot of blood testing and to figure out what was going on. And ultimately I was diagnosed with Ankylosing spondylitis. I wasn't able to walk. My back was in a lot of pain, so I couldn't lay down. I couldn't pick up my child out of her high chair. It was very difficult. I would learn later that it happened after a traumatic event. So it took me a long time to realize that, because my first reaction was to go to the doctor and figure out what's going on and why am I in so much pain.
Okay. Now, and to take that, because I can't even hope to pronounce that, what you just said, but that is an autoimmune disease.
It is an autoimmune disease. It is similar, it's a degenerative autoimmune. It's a form of arthritis. I don't want to say similar to rheumatoid, but it is degenerative. So it's
all right,
it's something that doesn't get better, and it continues, and it causes long-term lasting damage.
Long-term damage. Okay, so you got to the point where you were not moving around.
Yeah.
You're not able to take care of your kids. You have 4 children, and that takes a toll on any family, right? Not being able to take care of your family and do what you need to do. And you got to a point where you were in a wheelchair, is that right?
Yeah, I was on either crutches or knee scooter, and for about 12 months I had 2 different episodes, 2 flare-ups, I guess I would call them, where I wasn't able to walk at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and at this point you were seeing doctors. Were they able to help you very much, or?
You know, the first time around while I was trying to be diagnosed, I had seen spinal doctors and rheumatologists, and I was about 17 different appointments a week. More than half of those were naturopathic type doctors, chiropractic and acupuncture, so on and so forth. But 16 to 17 different appointments a week, trying to figure out what was going on with me.
Okay, all right. And then what was the turnaround point for you, where you went from just feeling like it's getting worse and worse to where you started seeing improvement?
Boy, that's a loaded question. It's hard to give a specific answer because there's really a lot of things. But really, my brain was telling me that my body was designed to heal, and I wasn't necessarily brought up with that. You know, I wasn't surrounded with the knowledge that I have now of that our bodies can heal and that food should be our medicine. And you know, I was kind of just a standard diet child, antibiotics, vaccinations, so on and so forth. So I didn't really have that knowledge, but I had this underlying belief that my body was not made for illness, and I had that, and I really dove into history and saw that these diseases have not been around that long. Okay. And so I knew that there had to be something, and so that's what began my journey into look into, and I wasn't getting anywhere with the doctor. I had a bunch of different medications that I was on, and ultimately they wanted me to go onto a chemotherapy immune suppressant, methotrexate, which when I looked at that, told me, don't worry, we'll just take your blood work every 6 weeks because it can damage your lungs and your liver. And I thought, I knew it was a life sentence. Even though that's what they told me, I can't get better. I can only maintain. So I just didn't agree with that. And that's kind of what started me on the journey to research
and
how to heal.
I think so many of the stories I hear, this is kind of that crux, that moment where somebody feels like they just can't go along with the medical system any longer. And so they are driven to start researching, right? And to take responsibility back for their own health, which is a scary thing to do.
It is, yeah. It is. But, really, it doesn't. I would think with the technology that we have now that we would be making progress. We would be getting better, that people would be healing. But more and more people are getting sick, and now children, the cancer rate, and even our pets. I mean, it's not, we're not getting better with the knowledge that we have. And so doctors, they want to help, they have the right motives, but the reality of the matter is that we're dying younger, we're getting sick younger, children are born, they're born sick. And so there's a degeneration that is going on that we're not healing, we're only managing.
Right.
And the managing is one medication begets the next, and then we just continue to fall apart. And then it's not a quality of life.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing, or people say, that, well, we're all going to die of something.
Yeah.
But I think what people don't realize is that it's a suffering. It's not an instant death. It's not, well, we're going to step off the curb and get hit by a bus. It's a long time of suffering, losing your energy, losing your desire to get out of bed, losing the function of your brain, your memory, and truly enjoying life.
Yeah.
And we really are designed to be healthy and functioning into our older years, not crippled, not feeling ill and tired and sluggish in our 30s and our 40s.
Right, which so many people are struggling with right now.
Absolutely.
And I think something you just said about, not having these types of issues back a couple hundred years ago is something that's really important to look at. Now, they had their own types of health issues a couple hundred years ago, right? We had a lot more infectious disease. You had a lot more accidental death at a young age because we didn't have the emergency systems that we have in place now.
The ability to save
but
life.
we didn't have this self-destruct in our body that's going on with all of these autoimmune disease, all of these lifestyle diseases that are really becoming more and more prevalent. And so one of your methods of figuring out what you were going to do and what path you were going to take is to look back at what people were doing a couple hundred years ago.
Absolutely. I found that very important. And I didn't realize, we hear the term autoimmune, but we don't really dig into that and break that down, which is our body attacking itself. Why would our body attack itself? It's one thing to not have a flushing toilet, to not have refrigeration, to not have running water, and the bacteria and the disease that comes along with that, the doctor that only can make it around maybe once a month if you're lucky, and the loss of life that we had back then that we can spare now. But now our bodies are attacking themselves, and certainly that is not something that we saw that long ago. And so it's
kind of a new issue that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
So when you realized that and you started researching, you started taking responsibility, what were some of the first practical steps that you took that you started to see results from? And I know healing from something major is multi-pronged, right? This isn't just, wow, I started eating fermented foods and all of a sudden I was better. This is a lot longer and deeper process because the reality is it takes a long time to get in that state. It takes a lot of different negative inputs to get into a place where your body's self-destructing and attacking itself. So what were the first things that you saw that started turning that ship around?
Ultimately, from my research, what I found to be best for where I needed to go was I did something called the GAPS diet.
Okay.
I've since learned that we don't need a specific diet. There's many. There's the paleo autoimmune protocol and the maker's diet, all who have had great success stories. And so it's not just this one, hey, we have to do this and this is how we get better. But the knowledge that I gained from that how our brains and our guts are connected and how all of our bacteria, essentially all of our being ends up in our stomach. It makes up so much of our body. And so learning that eating easy to digest foods and healing our gut ultimately would heal my body. And so that's where I started.
All right.
And I found that to be a very helpful and healing protocol. It worked immediately. I mean, it was like within the first week, I was able to start rotating my foot. It was frozen. I hadn't been able to move my foot for about 6 months. I actually couldn't even do physical therapy anymore because my foot had it was turning blue. And, and from lack of use, I had wasting. It was wasting away.
That quickly, though, you started to see results.
Within a week, I was able, it was painful, but I was able to start moving it. And within a couple of weeks, I was able to walk fairly well on crutches.
Okay.
So it was instant. And my daughter,
Wow.
I mean, I've had other health issues with my kids. My youngest has had seizures, and my third oldest, so my second youngest, I don't know if I can say that, she was having some learning disabilities, and so was having trouble in school, had some some sensory issues, so she would scream and cry and couldn't wear anything with tags, and she couldn't have marker on her. I had to hold her back twice in kindergarten because she wasn't reading and wasn't recognizing her letters. And so within a week of switching her to the GAPS diet, the night terrors, which were about 3 to 5 a night, immediately stopped within the first 3 days.
Oh, wow.
She learned to read within that week. I mean, it was just like, nobody can convince you otherwise when it is so instant.
When you see it so clearly.
So instant. And so, yeah, and so from there, that is like really what sealed the deal to me. I'd seen, 17, I can't tell you the amount of money I spent on doctors because they don't pay for all these natural, and my insurance wouldn't cover all the natural side of things. Let alone the MRIs and all of that. And I mean, to have something that was so easy to do, work so instantly is,
So you said you were following specifically the GAPS diet,
Yeah.
but like you said, there's quite a few different healing protocols out there, which all kind of have generally the same types of tenets behind them. And can you, for the people who are not familiar with that, the GAPS diet stands for gut and psychology syndrome, right? So the connection between the brain and the gut and really the rest of the body. But what are some of the basic tenets of going on a diet like that? Because I know it's fairly rigorous and it can be challenging. It is a whole lifestyle change, but then again, when you start seeing instant results, it kind of gives you your life back, right? So that's a big deal.
And I can relate with a lot of people that it's hard to want to deny yourself certain types of food or spend more work in the kitchen or on yourself because we're busy Americans. But when you feel better and you're able to regain your health, and as some of us haven't even experienced good health or remember ever having energy, and it pays for itself, the amount of work. And so I started by doing broth and I'm sure everyone knows the old saying, chicken soup when you're sick or when you have the flu. And the reason for that is because that broth, that meat stock and that bone broth is what heals our gut.
Right.
It is very healing to our gut. And so it's easy to digest foods and
Right.
Starting off.
And if you guys are interested in starting to make your own bone broth, we have a video on that. I will try to link it somewhere here, look in the description, so that you can start making that good, really healing bone broth, because that is just really a miracle worker. It's it's no reason.
And it's so easy.
It's so easy.
It's so easy, and people think
so
it's not
cheap.
easy, which is so funny.
It's such a
It's
cheap
basically
food.
free.
It really is almost free. Here we really have this sense that good quality food that's going to heal us is just so expensive. And yes, there are ways that that's true. There are expensive foods that you can eat, but some of the best foods are very, very cheap if you'll just get in the kitchen and do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, so good bone broths is where you started.
Meat stock and bone broth and easy to digest vegetables.
Okay.
And the premise is to avoid starches and harder to digest foods. Okay. And doing a dairy, obviously, I'm very pro milk and cheese and butter and yogurt. But those things to a compromised immune system and a damaged gut are harder to digest. So you're avoiding starches, rice, corn, and wheat and any other type of grain and legume, and dairy products, and of course sugar. So, but surprisingly, I wasn't hungry. I lost like 40 pounds in 2 months eating an enormous amount of fat, probably half a cup of butter or ghee or something, and I would just have soup, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. And I didn't feel deprived. That was the amazing thing. That was another thing I learned, is how much our gut and our brain are connected. When you eliminate those things, that especially starch and sugar from your gut, your brain stops wanting them. Okay. And I'm a big, foodie and a big sugar person, so I never thought that was possible to not want, thinking I could be satisfied on food like that, and I certainly was.
Well,
So-
and I know that's true in my own life. If I stop eating sugar, I don't crave sugar.
yeah, it's amazing.
Like, it's there really is kind of
Get
that
to the point
addictive
of
quality.
stopping.
Yeah, you have to actually decide to stop. But and then how much does fermented foods come into the GAPS diet?
Yeah, that is something that is also recommended is to have fermented food with every meal. We're repopulating our gut with bacteria, and a lot of us once we and that's what a lot of people don't realize about autoimmune or even cancer is that we all have the tendency, we have unhealthy cells in our body, and then we have healthy cells, and our gut has good bacteria and bad bacteria, and so really when the scale tips is when we fall into that becoming sick. You know, it's
Right.
we have to keep the good bacteria outweighing the bad, and so of course antibiotics kills good and bad bacteria, and stress is what a lot of people don't realize. Stress kills.
is a big one,
It can
isn't it?
completely eliminate, and I'm sure some of you have experienced that a stressful situation happens in your health. Your body can ache more. You can be more susceptible to illness. I know when I travel, for some reason, it always makes me sick. I get a cold every time I have to get on a plane. I just get so stressed. And so we need to repopulate our gut with that good bacteria. And some is like yogurt is a transient bacteria, and kefir will populate your gut. It has more strains of bacteria and living cultures. So
So in there you're talking about the types of fermented foods that actually get down the probiotic quality actually gets down into our gut and doesn't just die in the stomach acid, which some people have a really hard time with this because they don't see how it's possible that any of the good bacteria can get through your stomach acid and into populating your gut. But it is actually scientifically proven that there are several different types of ferments where that will happen.
Yeah, and what I did before I started eating sauerkraut and different fermented products, I would just drink the liquid. So I would buy the liquid and drink that with every meal. And I still actually do this to this day. Even my kids eat sauerkraut, and I try to have fermented. I think with every single meal, I have a fermented something because it really aids in digestion, and it is a traditional thing. You know, having lots of fat to aid in assimilation and digestion, and fermented products, and so that is very important in the GAPS diet as well.
Okay. All right. Now, you're talking about eating soup. You started by eating soup 3 times a day, and that's something that does not sound sustainable long term, right? So how long were you on this type of diet before you came off of it, decided that you could move on with life? This is in my understanding, this is a healing protocol, so it's not something that you're just designed to be on for the rest of your life.
Exactly, and that's the encouraging thing is it's not something that is permanent.
Right.
Our bodies are designed to digest grains and have milk and cheese, but we have to get to that point. And everybody's body is different. There are some that have been on GAPS diet for years. I was on soup for about 3 to 4 months straight. I was actually very healthy, but had been tortured before, and so I felt so good, and so it was like I never thought I would stop. But I did slowly move out of the soups and have avocado and chicken and other easy to roasted vegetables, and I would say I did it overall for about 7 months before I started homemade chocolates and peanut butter, and really didn't feel deprived at all. And I would go out to eat and have just easy things on occasion, and I never noticed any flare-ups. I didn't have any return of my symptoms.
Wow, that is really amazing.
I would say about 7 months total.
7 months.
I've learned a lot since then.
Okay.
And so, but just on the GAPS, I did about 7 months to the letter of that specific diet.
Okay, so and then when you got to that 7 months and you're starting to feel like you've seen a lot of healing, what at that point did your symptoms look like? Did you at that point say, hey, I'm all better, everything's good to go, or were you still struggling with some health issues?
I thought that I was all better. I really did. I thought I was healed. I had also learned during that time the importance of detoxing, and so I was doing a lot of detoxing methods. All my friends thought I was totally crazy.
We all understand our friends thinking that we're crazy, right,
good.
guys? Because that's kind of like a tenet. To be a homesteader, you have to have at least some people in your life that think that you're crazy to do what you're doing.
I now know that
we get that.
that if it's crazy, that I'm on the right track.
That you're on the right track.
Yeah,
exactly.
I really do, because I like to beat to a different drum. So it's,
go.
yeah, I know I'm on the right track. But I learned that how important detoxing is. So that was another thing that wasn't really talked about a whole lot in the GAPS book, actually. And that's why I say at the beginning that it's not just that one specific diet. You've got some, like the body ecology diet, and that focus more, or detoxify and die, that focus more on one thing. And really, health is this, it's a bunch of different things wrapped into one. And so it was about 7 months of that, and then I thought I was totally healed. And I would say that a couple years went by where I was totally fine. And then I had something extremely stressful, even more so than the original, happened in my life that was out of control. And it came back with a vengeance. And it came back worse than the first time.
Oh, wow.
It had gone into, under the symptoms of the specific autoimmune that I had every single complete, side effect that I could. Everything that it could have happened. I ended up in the hospital with my eye completely bloodshot red. I couldn't see. I ended up having retinal scarring. I have a cataract now from the medication. So I had a lot of other scary things happen. But really, it was such a good. I think a lot of us can look back on bad things that have happened in our life and see what came out of it. And I never want to go through that again. But. But what I learned was so important. It was so different from the food aspect, because I've been these years of only sourcing local and fresh food, organic food, growing my own food, raising my own food, and so I really thought I had it down. But I learned this time was so much harder in my life going through it. We had just moved to the farm, a totally different lifestyle than what I was used to. But I learned so much from this last bout. And so really, ultimately, I don't know that we're ever fully healed. It's this constant, I don't want to say evolution, but it's just we're constantly taking care of our health. Right. We can do a protocol and feel better and have something traumatic happen, and our body can fail us. And so we just need to always be working towards health.
Okay. Yeah, well, and I think you mentioned that earlier when you were talking about, keeping that good bacteria ahead of that bad, because we always have this balance. It's always kind of a battle that's going on in our bodies, whether you view yourself as healthy or you view yourself as sick, or the medical industry says you're healthy or you're sick. There's constantly this battle going on inside of us for this balance and this, state of health and how we feel good. And so finding that place where you're always having to be looking back and checking in with your body on how am I doing right now, and how can I get better? How can I continue to grow healthier instead of kind of go down that slide of bad health? So after you had this more recent episode, what were your steps then at that point to get yourself back to up and running and feeling energetic and healthy?
Goodness, it's funny because I had been so rigid and so learned on the food side of things and what I could control. And I learned so much that this was on focusing on things that I couldn't necessarily control. It's hard to control how we react to situations and sometimes changing our mindset. And so it was this interesting journey of learning how to change my way of thinking and how to slow down and how to unwind and de-stress and rest. And I was still eating good and detoxing, and I did find that fasting worked really well for me, which is kind of a taboo subject in this day and age, even though it's so ancient. But that really, really worked really well. But it was a different journey this time, learning to slow down. And I came from, manicured lawns where everything was so easy, and so my list for the weekend was, go to Costco and do laundry, and now I lived on this 118 acre farm that everything needs to be redone, and I was doing things I'd never done before, and so I had to really learn to take my mind captive, so to speak, and slow down And I didn't worry as much, because I had been through it before as well. And I didn't go to any doctors this time. And I was new in this town, and so nobody knew me. Of course, everybody thought I was crazy. And it was harder because, I wasn't surrounded by people who knew where I had been and where I had come from and what I had done the first time. So I was met with a lot of adversity of, why aren't you going to the doctor, and you can't see and you can't walk, and I'm like, I got this, I've done it before, and everybody's just kind of like, whatever. so that was hard. But.
So even in North Idaho, guys, there are people who do not get it. So it's not so much about your community. It's the lifestyle choices. Really, people think you're crazy.
But it's exciting because when we stand for what we believe in, I learned long ago that I kind of keep some of my crazy in, and I don't try to push it on anybody else, because when they're ready, they'll come to you.
Yeah.
When we get, and that's, I think, how everybody is we don't want to change until things get super painful.
Yes.
Or super sick, or we're really unhappy. We don't want to change. And so I've been very privileged to have gone through what I've gone through, because it's ignited a passion and a purpose that I didn't have before. Okay. And that is why I'm doing the dairy, because I don't just sell milk. Actually, I never thought I'd be milking a cow, but I'm providing knowledge for people to heal themselves, to heal their children, to be able to enjoy food the way it's designed, and get our health back on track. And from being in the amount of pain I was in and going through what I have gone through, it gave me a purpose and a passion to help other people. And so it's a blessing and a curse, I say, to have the knowledge where I won't buy bread from the store anymore, I won't buy cheese, I'm going to make my own. Right. Mayonnaise and peanut butter, I won't buy it from the store, I have to make it. But I've learned to go without it, and I've learned to be so grateful that I have the knowledge, because you forget when you feel better, you forget, and you want to get back to being busy, but that busy lifestyle ultimately leads to not feeling so great. So it really is worth the effort.
Well, and I think what you said was really key, that it's about the mindset in a lot of ways.
Oh, huge, yeah.
Because you can be busy on the farm, you can be busy in the city, and you can be relaxed about it. Wherever you are, you can have that mindset that just takes it kind of in stride. You're focused on being joyful and thankful, and not on the stressful sides. You can be out on vacation and get super stressed. I know it. I have vacation with 9 children. I know how stressful that can be. And so it's not always about the life circumstances. Yeah. It can often be a lot more about the mindset when it comes to the stress of it. And for me, I know that focusing in on being joyful and being thankful, that gratitude is huge for that, because it just changes.
For your health. And for your health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what that does.
It really does, because stress is so harmful.
It really is.
So dangerous.
And that's what I learned. I've learned that it's not just one thing, and we do live in a world where we want one pill or one answer or one diet. And I've learned that that it's rest, it's forgiveness, it's detoxifying, it's the air you breathe, the water you drink, the thoughts you think. And you're right. So, your mental state and your thoughts are so powerful.
Okay, so this has been so much great information. So I want to take it back to a practical level for just a minute. And because I want you guys to have some tools to walk away with, to at least go research, look into for yourself. So my number one question, you have children. You have children on the homestead. They're homeschooled. I know you're busy with kids and you're really involved with your children's lives. What are some of the practical steps that you're taking for their health, so they don't have some of the struggles that just is really coming at us from our modern lifestyle? Is that too open-ended? Maybe what does your day look like? Like, what do you do in your home? What becomes priorities for them? Is it how they eat, what you feed them? Is it the stress levels in the home?
Boy, well, moving to the homestead has changed everything. My view on food, my view on work, my view on how to raise kids. And, as I've said, it's not just food. It's this whole way of living. And so, of course, food is very important. But I've needed a lot of help. And so having my kids help me and do life with me, of course, being outside, being around the animals, learning to work hard even at a young age, I know is going to help them. It's going to help them immensely as they get older. The food I've helped. My daughters are now my 11-year-old daughter makes breakfast 7 days a week, and my 18-year-old son makes lunch 7 days a week. And it's great because he even says, okay, what did they have for breakfast? Okay, they had some bread, so we're going to do this for lunch. And then he always gives them sauerkraut or some sort of ferment.
Oh, he's well trained.
So training,
he's right on there.
and my 8-year-old knows how to make the sourdough bread, and so immersing them in knowing how to make the food. You know, I know that my son's going to go off and not have to eat top ramen. Hey, I ate top ramen, so not knocking anybody that eats top ramen. But ultimately, that is a very, you know, it's not a healthy food. But knowing that he has the knowledge of like how he can use his money wisely and eat eggs and get milk from me, of course, and so. You know,
and this is such a big issue because so many people are coming into adulthood and they have no clue how to eat.
I did not know how to hard boil an egg when I
Wow.
was 18, 19. I did not know how to bake a potato or hard boil an egg. So everything that I learned was really after being sick. I had to learn. And really, what's the saying? Necessity is the
mother
invention.
of invention.
Yeah. And so it was like that was the mother of me learning how to cook. And so I'm passing that on to my kids. I hope I answered your question there.
I think so. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this discussion. I hope that it was inspirational to you and helpful to you on a practical level too. If you have anything to add to this discussion, please feel free to put it in the comments. Anything else, if you have struggled with some autoimmune issues or other health issues, please add the things that you have found helpful so that you can help somebody else who may be watching these videos. And thank you so much for coming and talking and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Take care, you guys. Goodbye.
Bye.